Hi, my name's George and welcome to this week's Rational Thinking. This week we'll be focusing on last week's events in Parliament and the effect it's had on the timeline of Brexit. Last week, the pound dominated the headlines and in particular the events that were taking place in Parliament. The week began with the House of Commons Speaker John Bercow refusing to let the government put its deal to Parliament for a second time in 3 days after it was defeated on the previous Saturday. This was the first of a series of key events throughout the week that took place in Parliament. Tuesday evening was arguably the biggest, where MPs rejected the government's proposed timetable for passing legislation to ratify the deal that Boris Johnson got from Europe. The defeat on the programme motion came after MPs actually initially voted in favour of Johnson's withdrawal agreement. For the first time in this whole process, a deal was actually passed by Parliament, 329 votes to 299, but opposed the PM on the actual schedule for leaving and the fact that the schedule didn't allow enough scrutiny by Parliament. This only served to increase the level of uncertainty, and sterling fell in the immediate aftermath of the vote. After that, in response to this mixed result, Boris Johnson unsurprisingly started to bang the drum for a general election, demanding that the MPs who had voted down his bill in fact actually now back an election in order to break the deadlock. We're still awaiting the outcome on that call this week, but it appears that Johnson probably has enough numbers to actually get that vote, with the SNP and Lib Dems appearing to support the move. However, not surprisingly for Parliament, there is still division, and this actually lies around the timetable of that, and timing at the moment is the biggest conflict on whether we should call a general election or not. Despite this political uncertainty, in the last few minutes we actually had Donald Tusk announce that the EU has agreed to an extension until the 31st of January 2020, with a flex extension being granted, and that will now be formalised through paperwork as the week goes on. This week should be a very busy one in terms of data, where we should see some central bank easing and data releases returning to the fore. In the US on Wednesday, we have the Federal Reserve interest rate decision, the monetary policy statement, and then the prevailing press conference. At the moment, there's an expectation that the Fed will cut interest rates by 25 basis points to 1.75% in response to recent soft data. On the same day, we also have the release of the GDP annualised figure for Q3, which is expected to fall to 1.6% from a previous 2%. After that, Friday signals the end of the week, but also a very busy day in the calendar, with the monthly non-farm payrolls expected to come in at 105,000 jobs created, down slightly on the previous figure of 136. We then had the release of the average hourly earnings, expected to increase to 2% from a previous 2.9%. And then to round it off for the dollar, we then have the ISM manufacturing PMI for October, expected to increase to 48.4 from a previous 47.8. This week ahead in Europe, we also have another busy one in terms of data. On Thursday, we have the release of the GDP figures year on year and quarter on quarter, and both are down modestly at 1.1% and 0.1% respectively. On the same day, we then have the release of the Consumer Price Index for October. The core number is expected to be unchanged at 1%, and then the year-on-year figure is expected to come in at 0.7%, down slightly from a previous of 0.8%. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Rational Thinking. As ever, if you have any queries or you'd like to discuss the current market developments, please feel free to get in touch at any time. Thank you.